Good evening, everybody. Eric Foster, Vice President of Strategy and Business Development for Banks and Company and also research. And I wanted to talk about realizing when things have changed and you have to change the way that you approach doing things. Now, I know it's a little nebulous what I just mentioned, but hear me out. So, in the space of our governmental system, we have the federal branch of government, then we have state, we have county, we have local, we have school districts, we have higher education universities, and in intergovernmental agencies that are sometimes interjurisdictional, like park authorities or water authorities or transportation authorities. So there's always kind of an overlap of how all of these governmental bodies work and how they interact and support and partner with each other. They do compete for certain things, but mostly they work together and they work together well in a normal world. But in 2026, I'm going to say that we're not in a normal world. And so if you represent or lead a community that is a majority voting community that didn't vote for the current administration or regime, depending on who you're talking to, that controls Washington, D.C., and our federal government, they feel a certain kind of way about you. And through actions of holding up funding or executive orders targeting policies or programs or things that you and your voters voted for, and your voters asked you to carry out in your state or your community, you're being punished for that. And so when I say sometimes you have to realize things are what they are and make changes, if you're in one of those governmental bodies, it's time to start looking at other ways for you to be able to meet the needs of your constituents that normally part of that would come from the federal government, be it if it was disaster support in times of natural disaster and crisis, if it is funding support for things relating to infrastructure or education, if it is sometimes coordination of information, if it's public health guidance, whatever it used to be, that door isn't going to be open anymore. And you kind of have to accept that that's the reality of what you're facing. It's kind of like when you're married and you finally hit that point. Hopefully, those of you who are married who haven't hit this point will never do. But I could say this as a two-time divorcee. There was that day in both marriages with the first ex-wife and the second ex-wife when, in retrospect, that was the day it was the end. Now, I'm a little hard-headed and I didn't want to accept that it was the end. So in both cases, I kept trying and trying and trying and trying. But it was the end. It was over. And nothing I did was going to fix that with either of the first or the second ex-wife. And so it was more advantageous to start thinking about what was life going to be like without the first and the second ex-wife. How was I going to live, function, date, companionship, raise my son, raise my sons, etc.? How was that going to work after we were no longer together? And the delay in accepting those realities did have an impact on my ability to respond effectively to the transition of life. Now, how does me being a two-time divorcee relate to you being a state like Illinois or a city like Detroit or a county like Fulton County or Maricopa County, and you're now in the middle of a hot war of the roses type situation where the federal government is looking at you like Kathleen Turner looked at Michael Douglas in The War of the Roses and is saying, I got to get this person. Well, it's better if you start accepting the reality and start making your moves to replace what you once had with something new. The Jody Watley song, I'm looking for a new love, baby, a new love, I think is pretty apropos because if you're a municipality, if you're a county, if you're a school district or a higher education university or a state that your spouse, the federal government, is now sleeping in the other room and is talking bad about you out here in these streets, I think it's time for you to start thinking about where else am I going to move? How am I going to make sure that I meet all of my obligations? How am I going to co-parent, etc.? That's where we come in at Banks and Company. Think of us as your consulting counselor that can help you with the breakup because you got to accept that the breakup is here. And with the breakup being here, that means you're going to have to make changes. So that can be a myriad of things from, for example, if you're a state that has a provision in your constitution or in statute that prevents you from issuing debt to meet budget situations when in emergency, it's time for you to look to amend those because you're going to be in an emergency for the next few years. Like here in Michigan, there's a provision in state law that allows for the state of Michigan's government to, in an emergency situation, issue in an emergency situation, you can issue or you can go over budget in the fiscal year. Well, it's time to break glass in case of emergency because there have been emergency declaration requests because of storms and other things that we asked for support from the federal government. And normally in a normal world, even if the federal government didn't really like us, they would have still came and helped us. You know, it basically would be like you just haven't got to that divorce point yet, and your spouse is still willing to, come help you wash your clothes or cook with you or something like that. Well, we're in a place right now where not only they're not going to do that, but they might, if they came down to cook for you, they might do something to the food. And so you can't rely on that. So you have to break the emergency glass and increase your budget, even if you go over, so that you can support your community and your voters and your businesses. Same thing with public private partnerships. If there were things that you were expecting to get to assist with parks or to assist with roads or other things, and you're not getting any more from the federal government, you need to take a step back and find that new love, which is a business or a company or entity that you can partner with that you can meet that gap in finance to advance that bridge project or that tunnel project or that fire station redevelopment or public safety facility development, whatever it is, you need to shift. If it's corporate sponsorship, naming rights, you might not want to name your rec center the Oscar Mayer Rec Center, or you may not want to name your fire hall the Duke Mayo Fire Hall. But if that helps you meet the budget gap to and make the investments for improvement, then the fire department brought to you by Duke Mayo might be a good thing for you to consider. So those are the things that we can help you look at and find ways creatively to not only do that, but also to attract like minded residents and businesses from other states that aren't feeling the love that they're getting from the leadership in those states to come to your state, but also communicate with your residents so they can know what is happening. Kind of like when you have to have that conversation with the kids. And like I say, I've been married twice and divorced twice. So I had to have that conversation with the kids. And you don't want to have it, but it's important to have it. And it's important to have it as early as possible so you can start preparing them for what co-parenting, separate households, and you know, lack of communication between the two parents is going to look like, so that you can be the best parent you can be to them, and you can minimize whatever damage comes from when they're with the other parent. These are just some practical realities, life experiences. Look, these are life experiences that I led that if I could have handled them differently, probably would have put me in a better position to be a better father and better manager of transitional life after each marriage ended. Well, if you're Illinois or Minnesota or Minneapolis or Denver, Colorado or California or Portland, Oregon, you're in the divorce phase and it's time to make game plan for how transitional life will look like. And so based on that, how are you going to ensure that no matter who becomes the next administration, if we ever get back to, well, not if, but when we get back to an administration that basically that new love that wants to work with you, that wants to be in a relationship with you, you are already prepared just in case. You have your go bag ready so that in case they turn on you, you can still provide for your citizens and your businesses without fail. So, if you're interested in finding out a little bit more about the Banks and Company approach to helping you with that sort of public policy and development strategy, transition, and modification, email me at eric@bankscompany.us. And you can see in the background on the screen, Banks Company. That's just how it's spelled, all one word, .us. Visit us at www.bankscompany.us. Let us help you as a agency, as a elected official body, as a community, prepare for the transition. It's rough. It's not expected. It wasn't what you had on the game plan. You didn't sign up to expect that one day the federal government was going to kick you out the house and throw your clothes out on the street. But we're here. How do you still function in spite of that? That's what we can do to help you. Now, fortunately, our CEO has never experienced what have experienced, but he has that other perspective as well. And our team has that myriad of business perspective, but also life lesson skills that can help in strategy to help you make the way forward. So, like I say, visit us at bankscompany.us. Look forward to talking to you. Also, check us out online. We have a Apple Podcast channel. We have a Substack channel. We're on LinkedIn, Facebook, Threads. We're on Twitter. I don't go to it, but we're on Twitter. Visit us, check us out. We're here to help you make that transition and make it the best transition you can be and the best you can be coming out of it.